Travis Winggood. So, there's been a news story that I've purposely avoided all this week from the Deseret News. As if you've not been paying attention, the Deseret News is on a rampage with sexual deviants of Mormon Utah. And yet another one. A 77-year-old man had bought an Iranian bride and trafficked her back to America as a sex slave, because that's what you're doing when you're purchasing a bride. And so she's been kidnapped. She's been held up for auction, and he purchased her, brought her to America, brought her to Utah. He's a 77-year-old man, 48 years older than her, and she, of course, knows the common tactic of such women who are sold into sex slavery and human trafficked, to claim that it hurts down there. And so leave it to him to sexually assault her and do other unspeakable things that I did a video on it, and I decided, no, this is too horrific to cover. And with the temple endowment for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, Mormons should know by now, if you're of the post-Nelson generation, that prior to Nelson taking away the part where women are supposed to be, it originated as women are supposed to obey their husbands under Brigham Young. Not Joseph Smith, Brigham Young. It's Brigham Young who created the initial texts to be used for the rituals. And if you're going to be naive to think that Joseph Smith is to blame so that you distract and detract away from Brigham Young and his atrocities, shame on you. And so in 1991, President Ezra Taft Benson began a rewording campaign, and it was all over. His institute was talking about it, and churches talking about it, about how women no longer obey their husbands. They now hearken unto the counsel of their husbands as he hearkens unto the counsel of the Father. That was the change. And Benson, tried to pull the wool over Mormon women's eyes to, say that a man is still the presider in the home, and you hearken unto his counsel. Counsel. But Nelson was the one who did away with that, and the woman now gives obedience to God. Well, in conference, if you didn't pay attention, who is God? Welcome to conference, to hear the voice of God. Whose voice are we hearing? God's voice or Nelson's voice? And I've done the video where I exposed, and you guys have most likely seen it, because that is a very popular video of mine, despite the YouTube's efforts to shut me down, that Nelson had distracted with that by changing the law of chastity. And he used some of the same wording, legally and lawfully wedded, but there was some extra words thrown in. Those, according to his law. And if you're not Mormon, you probably don't know about Section 132. You can summarize each section of the contents that are contained therein. And so Section 132 is the polygamy chapter. It was put in the year before Brigham Young died. Yes, Brigham Young, not Joseph Smith. Joseph Smith, in the 1835 Doctrine and Covenants, put in a whole chapter on monogamy, that polygamy is bad, to support the Book of Mormon that 4 times says polygamy is bad. It's wicked, it's evil, bad people, bad churches do it. And then, of course, Brigham Young had to gut Section 131, which preceded it. Notice how he purposely put it after 131, because now, with it gutted, it talks about the new and everlasting covenant and exaltation, and then we go into 132, polygamy, exaltation, eternal covenant. I wonder what was gutted. I wonder if the Joseph Smith papers might show us what was gutted. Yes, Joseph Smith talking to a monogamous couple, saying, hey, when you get sealed, you can be exalted. Monogamous couple, exalted. Yeah, why was it gutted? So any Mormon who thinks that because the current church no longer practices polygamy, and therefore it is not a requirement for exaltation, seriously? You can just have a different prophet and he can declare a different manner of exaltation, and every generation has different laws and requirements to get exalted? Is that how it works? So should we hope that we live for a prophet who will let us get away with all sorts of stuff so that we can be exalted? Is that how it works? You know, I think we're doomed. Oaks is next. It's going to be worse under him. Could you imagine if John in Revelation was wrong, that the beast would not be replaced with somebody worse than him, that it's actually the false prophet that John is talking about that gets replaced with a worse false prophet? That would fit with Oaks taking over for Nelson, because Oaks is the one telling Nelson all this stuff. He's the one pulling the puppet strings of Nelson. And if you didn't see the press conference, you have no clue. You see Oaks reading from the script as Nelson is talking. And so, if you don't understand polygamy, Heber C. Kimball, if you know his genealogy, is credited in the genealogy records of the family as having had a wife and child who was not the first wife in 1829. When did the church start? When did Heber join? And what's going on? So Heber is already secretly a polygamist, joining a church because of the Book of Mormon, which condemns polygamy 4 times, and Heber is joining the church with his secret wife and his regular wife. Now, you remember all the talk about, oh, Joseph Smith was practicing polygamy in secret. Joseph Smith, he was sealing others in secret. And it was Brigham Young who finally came out and did it openly. Are you sure? You have somebody who's sneaking into the church, practicing polygamy in secret, and then he's among those who said it was practiced in secret by Joseph? Are we sure? I've told you about how Heber is sealed by someone other than Joseph Smith, because Joseph Smith is on the run from the law. So he's not able to lead the church at that particular time, as Heber is now sealed to a 3rd wife. In secret, who sealed him? Joseph is the only one with the sealing authority from Elijah in the Kirtland Temple. Mixing up my temples and time periods. Yeah, where the Moses guy also appears and gives Joseph the key of the first presidency. Oh, you thought it was Peter, James, and John, did you? Who had the keys of Peter, James, and John, and then claims that that's the key of the presidency? You're not making the connection yet to what's going on in the big picture? So, there's more. After the assassination of Joseph Smith, as interestingly, the 2 guys who were the only ones in the room during the shootings in the room that murdered Hiram and Joseph, Brigham Young was trying to take over. They had a debate with Sidney Rigdon, and Joseph's mother also spoke. They didn't follow Joseph's rules for succeeding him. Nobody did. And Brigham he muscled the church away from Sidney. And people just pretty much went their own way. Now, Brigham needed to get as many people to follow him as possible. If you do not understand the time period, women had no rights. They were not considered human. They were property of their husband. And so Joseph Smith giving women the priesthood was a big deal. But Brigham Young immediately took it away. And in order to get women to go with him, it's a simple matter of extortion. You want to survive? I'll take care of you, but you've got to come with me to the desert, as we're going to flee America. And so we're going to require you to be sealed to me or Heber or one of my 12 after I've kicked out William again. And you're going to have to be our sex slaves. Now, there were those who refused and said, well, we'll be sealed to Joseph Smith posthumously. Desdemona Fulmer, my 3rd great aunt, is one such person. And that's how John Solomon Fulmer, my third great grandfather, was able to then go. And he gave in to the polygamy, but he only took one wife at first, one extra wife at first, and then after the declaration in 1852, he took on a third. And so he was minimalist with it. But again, Brigham Young had to approve them all. And so you've got all these pioneers, and the women are sealed to somebody, as Brigham Young is claiming, oh yeah, it was all done in secret. No, you were doing it in secret with Heber. Brigham Young really wasn't getting sealed to the women, as the claims were that he was just having sex while on his missions. He would go into the women's houses, into the bedrooms, as the kids would report what they had observed their mommy doing with Brigham while the husband was out working. And so, yeah, it continued over into England as well. Just a horrible human being. The death of his wife just threw him over the edge. He just snapped. And he blamed the church for it. Because the church, as I did that video, preaches the gift of healing. And Brigham Young had a sick wife and didn't join the church until after she died, because she didn't get healed by the church. So again, you can see the intentions of Heber and Brigham Young, who were bestest buddies. They had no intention of being Mormon. It was to conquer, to get revenge, to overthrow it. And so, yeah, when you take women out of the country, or across state lines even, and you're using them for sex, polygamous marriages, which is illegal in the United States, that's called human sex trafficking. There is no other word for it. It's not God's law. Remember Article of Faith number 12 that Joseph sent in the Wentworth letter? Again, no polygamy. More witnesses for you in this video against polygamy. There is no justification to accuse Joseph Smith of it. None. So cut it out. And then once he gets to Utah, which was Mexico territory at the time, he then declared it the Kingdom of Deseret. Kingdom. It was not the state of Deseret. Don't be fooled and deceived. In 1846, in January, I did this video about the second anointing. Brigham Young created it. Not Joseph Smith, Brigham Young. In January 1846, in his newly created Nauvoo temple with the inverted pentagram of Lucifer on it. Heber C. Kimball, and I read the texts to you for both Heber and Brigham. He is made king. Thus it's called the second anointing. And so the church's claim that it was winter quarters, no. He had already declared himself king of the church in January of 1846. And so the other thing, that was just for show. Because this was done in secret. Just a select group of people were in that second anointing temple ceremony. And it was all built, it was ready to go, and he didn't dedicate it until the anniversary of the Illuminati, of the inverted pentagram, the light bearers. And so the United States came in, destroyed his kingdom. Do you not think he wants revenge? Has he blamed the United States for the murder of Joseph Smith so that he can get away with it? That's what criminals do. They try to put the blame onto somebody else so that they can get away with it. Frame somebody else. But he made it official in 1852 with the incorporation of his organization. And he then had brothels. If you don't know what a brothel is, you've not seen The Best Little Whorehouse in Texas or Deadwood. Deadwood's more realistic. Best Little Whorehouse in Texas is a PG movie, so you may not quite understand. Those women are not just entertaining the guys who are getting drunk. They're having sex with them in the rooms. It's prostitution. So if you're unaware of the ranch in Nevada, or in Porter Rockwell, got the first one, and they call it a hotel. Seriously? Oh yeah, it's a hotel. What do you think motels are used for? Yeah, we'd like a room, please, for an hour. We just had our prom. Seriously? The church just thinks they can just cover it all up. And then you've got Regent Street, that was called Commerce Avenue, where Brigham Young frequented. Because apparently the divorces were wearing him down. He needed comfort. And so there's one more thing that you're missing from the sex slavery of Mormonism. And that's in the ceiling. Again, Brigham Young is the author, not Joseph Smith. And all Mormons know of it, though if we don't go and do sealings for the dead, you don't memorize it. But thanks to the internet, we have access to the actual text so that we can know. And this one hasn't changed because nobody catches on. And so in the ceiling, as the couple kneels at the altar across from each other, with the sealer sitting at his desk, and the two witnesses, and the family, as they're separated, the bride's family behind the bride, the groom's family behind the groom. And so you're able to know the difference. The groom is on the right side of the sealer, so he's on the left side facing the sealer. The sister, the woman, is on the other side. And here is the text, which has to be said exactly. And so the witnesses are not only checking to make sure that the patriarchal grip or sure sign of the nail is secured in place, but that the text is worded by the sealer exactly as it is supposed to be worded, and that the bride and groom say yes rather than I do. So the sealer's words: brother so-and-so, do you take sister so-and-so by the right hand? Used to be in the patriarchal grip prior to 1991. Brigham Young Benson had made that change. And what's interesting is that doing sealings for the dead, the sealer would say in the patriarchal grip the first time around, and then thereafter leave it out. And so this is what the person who's putting this text online is not understanding. And receive her unto yourself to be your lawfully wedded wife. Did you catch that? Receive her. And so what's the woman's part? Sister so-and-so, do you take brother so-and-so by the right hand in the patriarchal grip and give yourself to him to be his lawfully wedded wife, and receive him to be your lawfully wedded husband. You see how they did that? The man does not give himself to the woman. The woman does to the man. That's a little slavery thing there. Sex slavery thing. That still remains from Brigham Young. And all Mormons miss it, obviously. Because it's supposed to be taken in the context of the law of obedience. That the woman is supposed to obey her husband because she is given to him. She's his slave. She is his property. And it's still in the temple, despite Nelson changing the law of obedience so that women no longer have to obey their husband. But those, according to his law, do you see what they're planning? They're bringing back polygamy and sex slavery. How are they going to do it? It's still illegal in the United States. That's where you have to pay attention to Oakes and Nelson and what they actually are saying, because you're going to miss it otherwise.